Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com. You know, Chandos has been doing a series of orchestral music by Rodney Bennett, and so I thought, we might as well go through it, one volume at a time. It features, Volume 1, the BBC Scottish Symphony Orchestra, conducted by John Wilson, with Colin Currie, Marimba soloist. Well, that's interesting, doesn't it? Sound intriguing. Bennett lived from, 1936, it looks like, to 2012, and his style was wildly eclectic. It was eclectic, too, but it was particularly eclectic. I mean, he wrote, atonal thingies, and he did modern romantic thingies, and he did very good film scores, and was a wonderful orchestrator. And most of the pieces here are late works, relatively late works in his mature, sort of like neither here nor there style. That doesn't mean it's not attractive. I mean, it's not precisely normally tonal most of the time, but it's also not atonal. He writes tunes. He has consonant harmonies, and his orchestration is lovely. Most of the time, it's rather diaphanous. His music has this lovely rhythmic fluidity and shifting kaleidoscopic colors. I mean, you would call it almost impressionistic, but it's not blurry. It's really a characterful style, but is it expressively potent? That's the question. So let's see what we have here, shall we? This begins with Celebration for Orchestra. Well, you know what that is. Festival overtures and celebration thingies. It's got brass fanfares. It's got, whiplash percussion, and it's and gentler, more lyrical moments, and it gets the job done in 4.5 minutes. So that's fine. Then we get the Marimba Concerto, which is in 2 movements lasting, around 16 minutes. This was composed in 1987-88. Okay, here we have a problem. And the problem, it's very, very funny. People do these things musically, and, I'm a percussionist, and I don't particularly believe in percussion concertos. And this is a locus classicus for why not. The reason why not is that it sounds best when the marimba is not playing. And it's fabulously well played by Colin Currie. That's not the issue. I mean, the issue is that from an expressive point of view and as a solo instrument, the marimba is so limited in what it can do. And not only is it limited in what it can do, but you can hear how limited it is because everybody else in the orchestra can do whatever it wants better. Flutes, oboes, clarinets, bassoons, strings, brass, even other percussion instruments sometimes. I mean, it's hopeless. It's absolutely hopeless. I found it a fascinating study in anti-musicality. And the truth is the marimba can be a fabulous solo instrument, but in ensembles of like-minded instruments, in percussion ensembles, in things that are set up so that it does not sound like you're dealing with a special needs instrument throughout the entire work. I mean, the very opening of the work, you get like flutes going off, and it's, the marimba's sort of doing little arpeggio things, which is fine. And then it comes in solo, and you just go, ugh, what the heck is that? I mean, it sounds like someone's, banging on a table with a couple of spoons. It's just not a musically effective medium. And it really doesn't matter how good the composer is or what they want to do. Makes no difference at all. It's just hopeless. So that's my feeling about the Marimba Concerto. And I'm sorry, marimba players out there. You know what the good repertoire is. You know what you can do. There's solo stuff, there's transcriptions of things, and there's percussion ensemble writing that can be marvelous. But put a marimba as a solo instrument with conventional instruments? No. There's some fundamental musical cognitive dissonance, musical dissonance, timbral dissonance. Anyway, enough of that. The Third Symphony is a very modest work, 21 minutes in 3 movements, ending with an adagio. And it really, it's interesting that Bennett is not really out to make a major statement here, I don't think, though he is trying to achieve a certain extra depth, I think, by putting the adagio last. And the funny thing about it is that he doesn't get depth in the conventional way. He gets depth by sort of slowing down. I mean, if that's, I mean, the opening movement begins slowly, then it has a quick second half, and then there's an allegretto, which rises to a kind of scary climax, an intense climax, and then the final adagio. And it's moving because it's deliberate. And you get a sense that because of that, there are more serious issues being discussed. But it's not a major statement, not by any stretch of the imagination. And then the summer music is a delightful little 3-movement suite, the most tuneful work on the disc. It fits the title beautifully. There's a central siesta and a little game-like finale, 3 minutes each. It's charming and delightful. And then the concluding Sinfonietta, which is a single movement, nine minutes long, and it is bright and breezy and light, and it does Sinfonietta-like things. So the idiom is recognizably that of the other works on the disc. Is there enough variety here to sustain your interest? I mean, I listened to all 65 minutes of this at once, and I have to confess, I found myself getting a little bored toward the end. And it wasn't because of the performances. I mean, John Wilson and the BBC Philharmonic do a fine job. They're extremely well recorded. That's not the problem. The problem is the limited expressive range. And, we've come back to this often, time and again. If you're going to write works in large forms, you need to have enough contrast to carry you through them. Does Bennett have enough contrast? Well, in everything but the Marimba Concerto, he does, but just barely. I look forward to the future releases in this series where maybe we'll get some more I know we will, because I know what his other music sounds like, or some of it anyway. We'll get some more widely contrasted idioms and efforts at expression than we have here. This is pleasant and kind of relaxing and, okay. But it's not gonna have you jumping up and down and cheering or panting and heaving or any of those more what's the word? Any of those more obvious emotional shows of emotion. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.